Good morning, class. My name is Sunny Hernandez. My partner is Rafael Solorio, and today we will be presenting Snyder versus Phelps and Earl Warren. Earl Warren was born in Los Angeles on March 19, 1891. His family lived in Bakersfield for most of his childhood. He came from a working class family of Norwegian immigrants. His father was a railroad employee. He was also determined to be a lawyer before high school. He listened to criminal cases at the Kern County Courthouse. Earl Warren did well with the town's public schools. He attended California Berkeley. He majored in political science for 3 years. He then later entered UCV's School for Law. He received his bachelor's degree in 1912, his GD degree in 1914. May 14, 1915, he was admitted to the California Bar. Warren served in the U.S. Army during World War I. He rose to the rank of first lieutenant. After his discharge in 1918, he committed himself to public service. He worked as a deputy district attorney for Alameda County, California. After graduation, Warren worked in law offices in San Francisco and Oakland, the only time in his career where he was engaged in private practice. From 1920 until his retirement from the Supreme Court in 1969, he served without interruption in public office. In 1925, he was appointed Alameda County District Attorney. He won election to the post in his own right in 1926, 1930, and 1934. As a prosecutor, Warren was sometimes accused of high-handedness in his methods, but in 13 years and in thousands of cases ranging from murder to window breaking, he never had a conviction reversed by a higher court. Warren was a member of the Board of Regents of the University of California. He is the only person to have been elected to the governorship of California for 3 successive terms in 1942, 1946, and 1950. Earl Warren retired in 1969. In 1953, President Dwight appointed Earl Warren the 14th Chief Justice of the United States. Miranda versus Arizona. Miranda was arrested at his home and taken in custody to a police station where he was identified by the complaining witness. Miranda was found guilty of kidnapping and rape and was sentenced to 20 to 30 years imprisonment on each account. On appeal, the Supreme Court of Arizona held that Miranda's constitutional rights were not violated in obtaining the confession. Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka was a landmark 1954 Supreme Court case in which the justice ruled unanimously that racial segregation of children in public schools was unconstitutional. Brown v. Board of Education was one of the cornerstones of the civil rights movement and helped establish the precedent that separate but equal education and other services were not, in fact, equal at all. In 1946, he was the only governor in our history to win an election unopposed when he won the Democratic, Republican, and Progressive primaries. In 1948, Warren was a Republican Party nominee for Vice President of the United States on a ticket headed by the popular Thomas E. That famous election was the only one Warren ever lost. Interestingly, one of Warren's unsuccessful initiatives as governor was for universal health care. Among the Warren court's most important decision was the ruling that made racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. Another was the one man, one vote ruling that caused a major shift in legislative power from rural areas to cities. Besides his work on the court, Warren headed the commission that investigated the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Earl Warren died on July 9, 1974 in Washington, D.C. Fred Phelps, Matthew Snyder, and Albert Snyder were involved in the Snyder versus Phelps case. This case happened in 2010. United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit is where it originated from. The family of deceased Marine Lands, Matthew Snyder, filed a lawsuit against members of the Westboro Baptist Church who picketed at his funeral. The family accused the church and its founders of defamation, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress for displaying signs. U.S. District Judge Richard Bennett awarded the family $5 million in damages, but the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit held that the judgment violated the First Amendment's protection on religious expression. The church's members' speech is protected, notwithstanding the distasteful and repugnant nature of the words. Our case went to the Supreme Court because the First Amendment was violated. It was an 8-1 decision. The Supreme Court affirmed that the judgment of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in this case, the First Amendment shields Westboro from torts of intentional infliction of emotional distress and intrusion upon seclusion.